Hello, I'm Mr. P. That was a really weird way of saying hello, wasn't it? Hello, I'm Mr. P.
Hello, Detective.
Hello, Detective. I'm Mr. P. This is Mr. Dave. We're the Geeky Guys, and welcome as we are continuing on our road of regeneration as we talk about all the Doctor's regenerations. Slightly shorter video today. We're just talking about Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah.
So, Jodie Whittaker took over as the 13th Doctor. Now, was that unlucky because she was Doctor 13?
I don't know if that made a lot of difference to it, really. Obviously, there was we've got to mention first off that there was the bit of the outcry about was it right to use a female actor?
Just before we start, we ought to point out that, in fact, this is the big change. Not just the showrunner, Chris Chibnall, took over from Stephen Moffat, but also Jodie Whittaker took over as the Doctor, the first time that a female has been the Doctor, at least.
And obviously Chris Chibnall brought in his own production team from Manchester. So a lot of the people that had followed over from Russell to Stephen Moffat kind of went a bit by the wayside, and a lot of them were new. So it was kind of like almost like another soft reboot in a way. New team, new writers, new directors that hadn't really worked on the show before.
It's worth pointing out that these changes happened at the same time that the world went a little bit. It went a little bit politically correct. There was a lot of the Me Too movement happened. It was all about
everything was woke and all that sort of thing.
What the hell does woke mean? Anyway, it got a little bit. We should cast. Not in this case necessarily, but the world got very much a little bit more like, oh, well, we need to make a woman's film just for the sake of making it. I mean, they made the Ghostbusters film with just women in that just completely flopped. But there was no need to make it.
No. Everything's got to be done for a good reason, to tell a good story.
We had this discussion at the time. We had no problem with the fact that the Doctor was a woman, although we did think it was perhaps not the best creative decision. We just thought, as long as they are doing it for the right reasons, and when you watched that first episode, first series, and even second of Jodie Whittaker's, there was so much political correctness episodes in there. It felt forced on you, and I didn't like it.
No,
it felt like they were doing it just because they felt like they had to do it.
Yeah, I think it did feel a bit strained at times, didn't it? Where, you know, I remember we said this at the time as we were watching the series. It seemed sometimes that they were trying to tick boxes rather than tell the story in the most effective and dramatic way. It was kind of like, oh, we've got to put this little comment in, or we've got to do this a certain way that's different to normal because it ticks a box, which was a little annoying. But, you know, her performance as the Doctor did get better. Some of the writing was a bit.
If we put away all the political correctness out of the side, let's just say, right, we've covered that, it's out of the way. We've got this character, it's still the Doctor, it's Jodie Whittaker, she's a great actor. Let's see what she's going to do with the role. And as she went through that series, I agree, her performance got better. But for me, it was, I mean, the writing has to be. Yeah. You've got new writers, new everything. They've got to get used to this character again. I'll tell you what my thoughts are in terms of a weakness for this character. Not the actor, but for the way they wrote this character. We talked about those emotions in the previous Doctors and how they can flip that switch, and all of a sudden they're menacing. You're scared. Yeah. This never really happened with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. She would say things, but there's a particular scene where she's in she's gone into this room barn or whatever it is, warehouse. There's the baddie there, and she does that flip the switch thing, and he basically looks at her and laughs at her. Yeah. And it's like she wasn't menacing enough for me. She got better, and I said this all the way through. I said, "Oh, I preferred this one this week. There was a bit more of this in it. There was a bit more
there was development
Doctor in there." She does the walking around and hanging around with her mates really well. Yeah, but that menacing part, until a little bit later on as her time of the Doctor, I didn't see it much.
Yeah, certainly we went back to kind of like the situation with the companions that we had with kind of 10 and with 2, where they were a bit of a family, the fam, as she always said. And they did work well together, and they would sometimes split off and sort things on their own. Like, obviously...
you go there, we'll go here.
Yeah, Mandip Gill, who played Yaz, would go off and go and try and sort something out on behalf of the Doctor. And then, you know, we brought in obviously the comedic side of
Bradley Walsh.
Which again was another one where it was a similar feeling to when Catherine Tate came in, wasn't it? Where it's like, oh, it's a bit of a funny guy from TV who's not really done this sort of straight acting before.
Well, actually, he has. He played the detective in the TV series in the UK Law and Order.
Yeah.
He was the detective, and he did a really good job in that, actually. But it's a little bit obscure. Not a lot of people know about it, so they wouldn't know.
Yeah, he certainly hadn't done a lot of acting.
No,
straight
but he got the range really well in this. He got a chance to.
And
really,
I think he got better as well. I think as time went on, he was more fleshed out.
I think the writers had to just get used to these characters a little bit.
And then we kind of had that situation, didn't we, where are there too many companions? Is there too much going on? Because you kind of had like Yaz and kind of Graham, who like kind of fitted right in and kind of found their way, and kind of Ryan was a bit, Tosin Cole was a bit in the middle, and he had his family stuff like going off, but I don't know if he ever really became a major part of that TARDIS family in terms of the TARDIS and defeating the enemy and the rest of it.
It goes a little bit back to Peter Davidson. He had quite a big team at one point.
Yeah.
And you almost got the thought sometimes that those scenes were a little bit
Crowded.
diluted.
Yeah.
From what they should needed to be, because they were overpopulated.
Yeah.
You know, maybe.
Yeah, so it was maybe too much sometimes. It made it difficult probably for writers as well to include everybody. And we also had, just while we're still on the companions before we move on, we had a similar thing with Catherine Tate coming in with David Tennant. We had Dan come in, John Bishop, who came in as a companion in the later sort of last couple of series. Which again was another one where it's like, oh, you've seen him doing stand-up comedy and, you know, not doing that much straight acting. How's he going to fit in? And I think he actually did a good job. I think it took him a little while to find his stride, but I thought he was quite good.
I always thought he was going to be good. He did a series of interviews called A Conversation With, and he was amazing at just being interviewing people and doing these really straight conversations that were really raw and honest. And so I think I had no doubt that he'd be okay.
Yeah, and he kind of showed how proficient he was when he kind of goes off on his own, doesn't he, into the Sontaran base to try and sort them out, to try and get something sorted there to help the Doctor. So I think, I think John Bishop ended up being a decent companion, had some good storylines, a good arc all the way through, which is good.
Oh yeah, I mean, they were all good. I think the problem you've got is that we were basing everything on previous experience, and it was all a little bit new. And I think, no doubt, if you went back, and I said in the previous video, I rewatched Peter Capaldi and loved it. I think if you rewatched it from the beginning again, you'd probably get this newfound love for it. Now, I've only watched these ones through once. It is still pretty new, to be fair. Yeah. I think it's probably worth a rewatch all the way through again, and I probably appreciate it a lot more. We are going to do, like I said in the previous video, a lot of deep dives into the Doctors, and when we get onto the Jodie Whittaker, we're obviously talking in a lot more detail.
Yeah, I mean, again, like with a lot of the other Doctors, there's highlights, isn't there? There's moments that were really good, that we enjoyed.
She started the series without the TARDIS again, which was a little bit Matt Smithy, because he didn't really have the TARDIS in the first episode. And she had to create her own Sonic. Now, we'd always talk about Sonics on these later ones. The Doctor, her Sonic was a lot more rustically made, because she had to kind of make it herself. Yeah, like making your own lightsaber in Star Wars, wasn't it? So it was all melted metal, Sheffield steel made for it, with a little bit of tech she found lying about, which story-wise, again, all of a sudden you've made this device that can do all this stuff out of a few bits lying around. The A-Team get away with it. I don't think the Doctor should be able to. That was a little bit weak for me. But if we skip that, she got the Sonic. It wasn't the best design, I don't think, but again, it worked for her.
It was the old crooked finger, wasn't it? Crooked claw. That was kind of.
It's like people have described this as a lot of other things as well. Some of which we're not going to mention on this video.
Unmentionables.
I didn't like it. There was a few things about this series I didn't like. Having said that, it's still Doctor Who. We of course watched it religiously. Yeah. Because we are fans of the show, and despite the fact we had a few reservations, We didn't want the viewing numbers to go down.
No.
We wanted it to carry on, and it did. It got a little better for us.
Yeah, and we had some notable returns as well during Jodie's time, didn't we? Obviously, we had a
Captain Jack came back,
which was really good. That was good fun.
Twice,
in fact, yeah. And we had a different sort of look at the Daleks as well. They didn't quite come into it in the way you would expect. It was kind of like the lone Dalek kind of story again, wasn't it? We had quite a big interaction with the Cybermen. They were baddies in quite a bit of it. The Sontarans made a big comeback, and I think actually the Chris Chibnall early on said he wanted to make the Sontarans menacing and like a big major enemy again. And I think he did that. He did a good job with doing that.
They become a little bit comedic, I think, haven't they? But, and that was perhaps I mean, it sounds like we diss in this series, but perhaps a little bit of a diss from the other one, that Sontarans did become kind of comedic a little bit too much.
They're a bit too easily defeated, wasn't they?
Fleets, and all of a sudden you've got them, doing puns and jokes. And Strax was brilliant, but
he was good. Yeah, not the valve on the back of the neck, and you defeat it. The other thing we ought to mention before we wrap up this one is that every Doctor, or a lot of Doctors, have their master. And obviously we had a new master come into this with Sacha Dhawan, who was particularly good. Yeah, I think certainly he improved that sort of series 2 of Doctor Who when he came back in. And he was kind of that maniacal master who would do anything to defeat the Doctor and would actually cross the line as well. We spoke earlier in previous videos.
Yeah, he crossed the line so many times. He annihilated everyone. He killed Time Lords. He's not the sort of villain that would twiddle his moustache and say, "Oh, I'm going to push this big button over there in a moment. Don't you try and stop me." And then give the good guy the chance to do that. He would just go, "Push the button." I've pushed the button. I'm going to murder you all. And it was so like you just did not know what was going to happen.
Yeah, and that was another thing. I think he,
that she's in the next episode, but when he was there, you feared he was just going to kill her. And even when watching the episode, you're like, "Is it just going to kill her?" And they're like, your brain's thinking that, but you're thinking, well, he can't do because she's in the next episode.
It was kind of the master where the red mist had come down, and he was just on an absolute vendetta, wasn't he? Just kill the Doctor and ruin her life. And like you said, I think in other previous episodes with the master, it's been a bit predictable, or he's been defeated a little bit too easily. Whereas with this one, it was just like, I've had a long time to think about it. I've got this plan. You can't stop me. And, it was kind of like the plan worked, and then they had to work backwards to kind of try and work a way to get out of it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't halting the plans. It was kind of the plan worked and trying to solve it from the other way.
Yeah. We are running out of time. One quick last mention, and we're not going to do a lot on this. We're just going to do a little one because, again, we'll do a deep dive. The writers and Chris Chibnall decided to go a different direction with the story from the Doctor's past.
Yeah.
It's always been quite obscure, not really that known about. We always know there's so many regenerations and so on. But they broke all that open. They broke lots of rules, and they kind of said there's this timeless child, and she's now, well, the Doctor was the one that actually gave the Time Lords their regeneration power. And there's potentially hundreds of Doctors flying around the universe now.
Yeah.
It all got very messy, and I didn't like that storyline at all.
Yeah. A lot of people didn't.
It gave a lot of material for Jodie to work against and act against, which was great. But I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, it just got, like you say, it got messy, it got confusing. You were trying to work out what was canon, what wasn't. You were trying to work out what was connected to what happened when, and how all this came together. And it didn't really connect. It didn't really land.
The Doctor being a mystery always kind of worked. And with this series, they really, although we'd opened the gaps a little bit before, they smashed it wide open. And I think that was a mistake. But, I mean, RTD has said going forward he's not going to retcon it. So we'll see what he does.
Yeah,
in terms
I mean, he might not even mention it. I mean, he doesn't have to do anything with it, really. He can just completely ignore it and move on. But he can't. He's not officially retconning it, as if by just not mentioning it.
Well,
it's
we'll
just
see what
left
happens.
there, and then if they do want to revisit it at some time and put their slant on it, they can do that.
She lost some companions, not lost, but they went away throughout the end. Yaz was probably the main one that stayed all the way through till the end. And we get this lovely moment at the end where she realises she's regenerating and has to say to Yaz, which this has happened with companions in the past. The companion has fell in love with the Doctor, and Yaz has fell in love with the Doctor.
Yeah, they kind of tried to do the Rose and Ten with...
It kind of worked, actually.
Yeah.
I think it did actually work. And I don't mind that. It kind of worked. I mean, you actually get the impression, well, you do get the impression that the Doctor loves Yaz too.
Yeah.
But she can't do anything about it because she's the Doctor, you're the companion, and she knows that it will never work because she's going to just carry on and regenerate, and Yaz won't. And there's a lovely line that David Tennant says way back in an episode called School Reunion, where Sarah Jane comes back into it and talks to him, and again we'll do a deep dive on that. And he says, "You can spend the rest of your life with me. I can't spend the rest of mine with you."
That's right.
And you know, he would have to see all his companions get old and die, and it would be heartbreaking every time he let that happen.
Yeah,
and
can't let them get too close.
And that's what she's sort of saying. And then she regenerates, or she's going to regenerate, and she decides that she wants to do that alone. So they get rid of all the companions, and then Jodie Whittaker
goes to the cliff top, goes out of the TARDIS, and that's when we get a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, we do, and everybody knows, I think, by now what it is.
Yeah.
So once again, you can see him right there at the front. He's not in the same outfit, but David Tennant's back as a different Doctor.
Yeah.
So it's his Doctor, but a different version of it later on.
Yeah, he's basically the same face, but he's the 14th Doctor, isn't he?
Yeah, so Doctor 14 for a few specials before we got the brand new Doctor for the series.
And apparently, I saw an interview with Russell T Davies the other day, there is a very subtle reason as to why he's got the 10th Doctor's face, the 10th Doctor's look again, and he says it is explained during the specials. So that'll be interesting to find out what that is and why that's happened.
I mean, like I say, Peter Capaldi had that, and they explained it in quite a nice way, which again we'll look at.
I think they will. But it'll be interesting to see how he portrays the Doctor this time and how it's going to be different from the 10th Doctor. So I think they will purposely do that. I
think he's going to play it fairly the same, which from the previews and things we've seen is good. I mean, you would. He essentially is the same Doctor, but he's not, if that makes sense.
Because he's had all those experiences since then, which are going to change his character very slightly, aren't they, in subtle ways?
Yeah. It's like meeting up with an old friend after you've not seen them for 10 years.
Yeah.
They're pretty much the same person, but
a
they are
lot's
different.
happened to them, and they've changed
and that's it. And so
it'll be interesting. And like you said, we've got the return of the Dream Team. We've got Russell T Davies back. We've got Murray Gold back doing the music, which is fantastic. We've also got Phil Collinson back from the 2005 to 2011 area as producer. Yeah. Jane Tranter back as well, who was involved in the original Conversations in 2005 to bring it back.
Said in the previous episode, that was the golden era of Doctor Who, and we think we're getting a second golden era now. This could be it. We'll see what happens. The new specials start, if we've timed this in our planning correctly, Mr. Dave, this episode will go out just shortly before the specials
60th specials arrive.
So the 60th specials start this next week, Friday, I think it is. So... amazing, we cannot wait.
I know.
Sonic's at the ready. Actually, just before we do it, he's got a new Sonic.
Yes, he has.
This was the online exclusive, and you can actually see our videos on YouTube about all the special features with this new Sonic. But yeah, we're so looking forward to seeing David Tennant with his new Sonic on specials at the end of this week.
It's going to be good. And obviously this time next year we'll have a brand new Doctor to talk about as well. Ncuti Gatwa is coming to play number 15.
And again, everything we've seen so far looks awesome. So we'll see what happens with that.
That's going to be good.
Thank you so much for watching all of these little trips along the road of regeneration of the Doctor.
And obviously there will be things that we've not spoken about, that we've missed, but as Mr. P says, but we'll get into those in the deep dive videos.
Yeah. You can find everything on our socials, and of course everything at geekyguys.co.uk. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our videos. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching these, and we'll see you again next time.